There are millions of substances, and each substance has its own unique set of properties. If we don't know what a substance is, we can measure or observe its properties to identify that substance. If we want to separate a mixture, we can use a difference in a property to separate that mixture. You use properties to identify people, from the color of their eyes, the shape of their nose, to the size of their arms. On TV, a detective identifies a white powder by tasting it, although that's not the best way to identify a substance. In this class, we'll learn that atoms consist of electrons. It's the valence electrons which are responsible for bonding atoms together to form a compound. We can represent a compound by looking at its molecular structure, and structure determines shape, which determines the properties of that substance. As future scientists, you will either find a substance or make a substance that has the properties that you want. For example, some substances are conductors, others are insulators, and then still others are semiconductors. For another example, two substances can be used to make a battery of a certain voltage, but change to two different substances, the battery will produce a different voltage. Your smartphone has a lot of elements in it. Your phone contains silver, gold, lead, mercury, and rare earth metals. One potential problem is that there's more rare earth metals in electronics than all known global reserves, so maybe we need to start recycling our phones. Here are some of the rare earth elements in phones, and here are some applications. This table shows some other applications of rare earth metals. Before we use properties to identify substances or to separate mixtures, let's use properties to classify substances. So stop the video and answer these questions. Here are the answers. A common definition of an atom is the smallest unit of matter. An element has the same kind of atoms. Elements are classified by metals, nonmetals, and metalloids or semimetals. One property of metals is they're conductors. One property of nonmetals is they're insulators. One property of metalloids are semiconductors. A molecule is a combination of atoms bound together that behaves like a single discrete particle. An electron is a subatomic particle inside an atom. An ion forms when an atom gains or loses an electron. Here's an example. The element oxygen is a nonmetal, which means it behaves like an insulator. Two oxygen atoms combine together to form the O2 molecule. Oxygen can gain two electrons to form the oxide ion. Here's a periodic table, so stop the video, identify which elements are the metals, which ones are the nonmetals. The nonmetals are, under normal conditions, hydrogen is considered a nonmetal, although under extreme conditions, hydrogen does behave like a metal. Use the chemistry tree to classify substances as either pure substances or mixtures. The pure substances are classified as either elements or compounds. Elements are either nonmetals or metals. We'll learn that compounds are either ionic compounds or molecular compounds. An ionic compound consists of a metal and nonmetal, whereas a molecular compound consists of two or more nonmetals. We'll look at mixtures later. These properties help us distinguish between and identify substances. Iron is used to make steel and is an essential element in our diet. Is iron found on Earth as an element or an ion? Stop the video and think about that for a minute. Iron is found on the crust of Earth in the mineral magnetite. The iron in magnetite is found as an ion, which has a charge of +2 or +3. This table shows some essential elements in our diet, as well as their functions and dietary sources. Are these elements found as elements or ions? The answer is ions. The Food and Drug Administration allows food labels to list these claims. For example, sodium causes high blood pressure, and eating your fruits and vegetables can prevent cancer. Sodium is an essential element, so stop the video and answer these questions. And the answers are, we Americans consume more sodium than is recommended by the FDA. One source of metals in your diet could be from your pots and pans. Pots and pans use elemental aluminum and iron. The acidic tomatoes and spaghetti sauce oxidizes the aluminum and iron to ions. We'll learn how acids react with metals later. A source of color is metals. Read the label before you buy and use these products. Lead is a very toxic metal, but Buffalo Wild Wings sells mercury. Now that we know how to classify substances using properties, let's use properties to identify substances. Here are some properties we can use. A compound that dissolves in water and forms an electrolyte solution is a property of a substance, so stop the video and answer these two questions. The answers are: the charged particles in solution 1 are ions, that forms an electrolyte solution. This solution will have a high conductivity. Let's compare a salt solution and a sugar solution, so stop the video and answer these questions. The answers are: 1 is a salt solution, 2 is a sugar solution. In a conductivity experiment, salt would have a high conductivity, sugar a low conductivity. Here, a light bulb is part of an electrical circuit and 2 electrodes are dipped into water. A white solid is added to the water. So what is the solid? The light bulb lights, so the answer is salt. Here's the reason. Salt is an ionic compound which consists of a sodium ion and chloride ion. When salt dissolves in water, the ionic bonds between sodium and chloride break and separate into ions to form an electrolyte solution. Sugar is a molecular compound. When sugar dissolves in water, no ions form, so the light bulb will not light. To review, sugar and salt are added to water to form an electrolyte solution. Stop the video and identify the ions in solution. And the answers are: you can make some money by identifying a substance. You observe the following properties, so stop the video and identify what the solid is. Color doesn't give us much information. Low melting point means we can eliminate ionic compounds because ionic compounds have high melting points. Dissolves in water eliminates most metals and nonmetals. Low conductivity matches a molecular compound which also has a low melting point. Keep in mind the classification of substances in the chemistry tree. Properties help us identify the substance type. Let's do one more practice problem to review, so stop the video and answer these questions. For test 1, both sugar and salt dissolve in water. High conductivity indicates an ionic compound, which means it's salt. 800 degrees is a high melting point, which also indicates it's an ionic compound. By measuring properties of a substance, you can identify it.